One of our biggest sources of anxiety is that of our need for control, our desire for guarantees and for certainty. And unfortunately, bar death, there are very few guarantees in life. And yet, so many of us exert so much energy trying to control so many of our circumstances and other people in our lives. And I suppose this is particularly prevalent for anyone who has grown up in an environment where they didn't feel secure, where things felt unsteady. And it's a coping mechanism that people develop in an attempt to regulate their world. But unfortunately, when you spend so much time trying to regulate external stuff, which at the end of the day isn't under your control anyway, all it does is create a heightened sense of anxiety and make you feel even more out of control. I mean, the only thing that we can really exert control over is our internal experience, our thoughts, and our behaviors. And yet, that's what we tend to run from, because oftentimes our thoughts and behaviors are a result of our emotions, and we tend to be quite uncomfortable with dealing with the emotions that has driven us to need a coping mechanism of control to begin with. So it all boils down to being able to regulate the emotional experience, being able to observe the resulting thoughts and behaviors, and to recognize what conscious choice you can give in any moment. And it's learning how to live with ambiguity. It's learning how to live with the questions, because again, so much of life is just having faith in taking the next step. It's not about knowing what the future is going to bring. It's not about guaranteeing that you're never going to make a mistake. And we really struggle with that. As I said, we like to think we can control everything. We set ourselves these insanely high perfectionist standards for everything that we do. And we're afraid to fail. We're afraid to do something just for the sheer heck of it. And we spend our entire lives in this very rigid mindset where we believe that we have to be in control all of the time, that we have to control other people, and that how somehow by ruminating and overthinking and overanalyzing, we're going to prevent bad things from happening. And the reality is, oftentimes, our mistakes are what present us with the greatest learning opportunities. And yet, we invest so much time and so much energy into trying to avoid any discomfort and any pain. We want to keep things the same. We don't like change. We don't like diversity. And we don't like to have to deal with some of the harsh truths of our past and some of the more uncomfortable emotions that come up in us. And yet, if we want to experience greater mental, emotional, and spiritual health, we have to find acceptance for the fact that we're not in control, and we have to be able to sit with ambiguity, and we have to kind of have a sense of humor about our lives. I mean, we tend to take everything oh so seriously, and it's about recognizing that life is just one big paradox. And the more we can appreciate that, the less likely we are to feel completely suffocated by the complete and utter arbitrary aspect that life often presents us with, and it's just finding what works for you and doing it on a regular basis. I mean, again, we tend to want the guaranteed solutions. We tend to look at somebody else's path and assume, okay, yeah, that's for me, it worked for them, and so I need to stick rigidly with that. And in doing so, we cut off all other opportunities for ourselves. And this is very applicable when it comes to dealing with our mental and emotional health. We see one person write a book and they talk about their success story, and we assume that that's going to somehow work for us. And yet the reality is, with something that is as nuanced as our mental and emotional health, we have to create our own path. Yes, we can take the guidance of others, and yes, we can see areas that possibly appeal to who it is that we are, but then mold them into your own practice, mold them into your own routine, so that you find something that you can stick with and that you can adhere to. And that's another thing we tend to look for. We look for the easy solution, we look for the shortcut in life. And yet when it comes to, I suppose, sustaining a practice that will promote your mental and emotional health, a lot of these things are very tedious. They're not all that easy, and they can there's a lot of drudgery involved, and they don't always bring instantaneous results. And I suppose it's recognizing that you do them anyway because they are an investment for the long term. They're not about instant gratification. They're about things that you do on a day-to-day basis that make a significant difference in your capacity to live your life to the full, in your capacity to live a meaningful life, and in your capacity to show up for other people in the way that we all ought to do, you know. So it's just taking a step back and asking yourself why it is that you need control, what it is that you're looking for, why do you need an easy fix, and then recognizing that if this is something that you genuinely want to, a path you want to walk, then you're going to have to recognize that you're going to have to let a certain amount of things go, let a certain amount of things be, and take it day by day, take it step by step, because again, as I said, it's not something that you can control, it's not something that you can guarantee, and it is not something that you're ever going to master. It is something that you just continue to show up to on a daily basis and just do the best with what you have on any given day with as much wisdom as you can actually apply to any given situation. And that's all it's about: awareness and acceptance, and just trying to be more responsive instead of being more reactive, trying to build your resiliency, trying to move from a state of rumination to contemplation and consideration for others. I hope everyone's having a great day. I'll talk to you again soon.